Swinging a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
This is the Fly the W podcast, season 4, episode 37. Cubs lose the battle of heavyweights up in Detroit. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe. Most importantly, review the podcast. Follow on all the socials. I'm at Mullyhaw on X.
And you can follow me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky and TikTok, and Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. You can email us at crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com. And boy, Dustin, after a weekend in the Motor City, my voice is finally starting to come back a little bit.
Well, it's good to see you back at home, not on a bus or at some brewery or some baseball game or somewhere having some good-looking food. We'll get to more of that in a minute. But let's get right after it, Crawly. Battle of the Heavyweights, as we've titled this one. A lot of people, speculating, Cub fans hoping, I'm sure Tigers fans hoping this could be a preview of a future October World Series matchup. And this one pretty much handily went to the Tigers overall.
Well, I think the series lived up to the hype. I think obviously the Tigers won the series, but game one, that was a coin flip on that one. That could have gone either way. Saturday, the Cubs dominated, and Sunday, the Tigers dominated. So I think, when we made our predictions, I said Tigers win 2-1 because of Skubal and because they were in Detroit. If you would have asked me same situation at Wrigley, I might have said Cubs 2, Tigers 1, right? And so I think it kind of went as predicted. It was so super close that this was just a razor's edge. Close plays, close calls, little mistakes here and there. But it was a game that if you were a baseball fan, especially Friday night was one of the most electric non-postseason games I've ever been to.
Yeah, it was really great. Unfortunately, it was only on Apple TV. So if you didn't have Apple, hopefully you'll listen to Pat, Ron, and Zach. So it was definitely a good one. Let's start there. So, of course, it was Tarik Skubal. Everybody was worried about that. And Ben Brown going for the Cubs. But Ben Brown pretty much stood toe-to-toe with him.
Yeah, Friday night baseball, right? The two best teams and just a phenomenal pitching, incredible defensive plays, some big hits, and a little controversy. We got Ben Brown. And after Ben Brown had his best outing of the season versus the Reds, remember he had an opener that game. We had a couple questions. Would they use an opener again? How would he do against a top tier team like the Tigers? And, the good thing to report is that Ben did make the start and he was able to pitch another really, really good game against an excellent team, right? The best team in the majors.
Yep, he really did. I mean, that on paper, they are the best team in the majors. He held his own. Didn't really have any bad innings, struck out a handful of guys. I think he actually ended up having more strikeouts than Skubal did. Right.
He was able to get a key double play ball in the second, got some big strikeouts in the third. Bottom of the fifth inning, he gets in a little bit of trouble with 2 outs. Former Cub Javi Baez hits an infield single, hits off the glove of Matt Shota. It's one of those plays that he cuts off the shortstop, Dustin. The official score called it a hit. We've talked about this plenty. Sometimes I don't know if they're drinking in the official scores booth. I don't know what's going on, to be honest with you. They called it a hit, whatever. And so Parker Meadows singled to put runners at the corner. And then former Cub, Gleyber Torres, he was cold coming in. He sure wasn't when he left. He had a great series, Gleyber did. He singled to put the Tigers up 1-0. Dustin, third baseman, Zach McKinstry, former Cub. Shortstop that night, Javi Baez, former Cub, and second baseman, Gleyber Torres, all former Cub, all went through the Cubs minor league system. How about that?
Pretty interesting. Yeah, pretty ironic, I guess, right?
Right. Ben's only mistake came in the 6th inning when he gave up a solo home run to Spencer Torkelson. And again, I'm not going to get mad if you give up a solo home run to Spencer Torkelson. That's what he does. He hits home runs.
What
you know what I mean?
He had a good weekend. Spencer Torkelson had a good weekend.
Yeah, Ben pitched 7 innings, gave up 2 runs on 7 hits, and Dustin only 1 walk. And so you saw another great start here from Ben Brown, and this is what Ben and his manager had to say about this game.
I mean, the last 2 starts we've gotten the great Ben Brown, and that's a great sign for us and a big step for us, and a big boost of confidence for Ben. So he and a credit to him, right? Things had kind of gone off the rails a little bit for 3 or 4 starts, and he's come back and, I think arguably delivered his best 2 of the year.
We've been working on a lot of really cool stuff on the mental side, and having an extra week to double down on it's really cool. So I'm just going to continue to do that. I think that was definitely the most high leverage intensity I've ever pitched in my life. So yeah, that was electric. There's tons of fans. They loved it. They were into every pitch. Obviously, when Skubal's pitching, it's a different monster too. So yeah, that was. I don't know. I've never been in the playoffs before, but I can't imagine it feeling much different than that.
I'll agree with Ben. Like I said, one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever seen. Everybody was hanging on every pitch, every crack of the bat. And that's the thing, Dustin, is that, we know more than anything that the Cubs need another ace. But what if that ace could be Ben Brown or Cade Horton? What if there's a next level? And again, if you're telling me, okay, Skubal pitched really well, but so did Ben Brown. He went toe-to-toe with them without a problem.
Very cool.
And now,
very cool. It's just really impressive performance. And again, like you said, we talked about, did he need an opener? And now I think you feel good that he's not going to need an opener.
Right. And so I was truly happy to see that for Ben. He's been on the podcast before, and I'm not going to lie. I don't watch all of Tarik Skubal's starts. This is the first time, Dustin, I saw him pitch in person, and he was as good as advertised, right? Not only that, Tigers defense made some spectacular plays to keep the Cubs off the board. Top of the second, Pete lines one to deep left that Riley Green robs. Extra base hit, with a nice catch at the wall. With Pete's speed, who knows? That could have been an inside the park home run if it bounced the right way, right?
Right. You get a lucky bounce. Yep. Get a friendly bounce. Yep.
And with his speed, top of the fourth, Javi Baez. We've seen Imanaga do this before. Robs Kyle Tucker of a hit on a nice sliding stop. But it was the top of the fifth that the Cubs, this is where there was a mistake. And against a guy like Skubal, if you make a mistake, you may not have another chance to get runs, right?
Right.
PCA singles to lead off the inning. Dansby Swanson doubles down the left field line. And unfortunately, there was some confusion going on, and PCA was tagged out at third. Here's the way that Craig and Pete both described it.
I think Pete was slowing down. Q had him still going. He didn't see him slowing down. And then Pete picked him up. And then, Pete started going and Pete slipped, So, Q's, it was a really weird play from that perspective. And probably if Q could do it over, I think he'd probably just try to keep his eyes on Pete a little bit. In addition, he's trying to keep his eye. You got to keep eyes on both people. But he thought there was maybe a chance to score him if Pete's coming, and Pete saw it the other way, right? Yeah.
Ball down the line. Play was in front of me for a long time, so picked up Q when I thought when the ball was behind me, and if anything, we were on the exact same page the whole time. So I just saw Riley, get that before I got to the track, and they made a good play.
So there's a lot of confusing things said there, and a lot
of confusion. The other bad part was this was on Apple TV. So right. I couldn't rewind it like I would have. I couldn't DVR it like I would have wanted. So there were some issues.
Here's the thing. Quentin Berry's the third base coach, and he's done a great job all season. And he's also the base running coach. And we know how good the Cubs base running has been. And so the way that, Craig Counsell said Pete slipped, no, he didn't slip. PCA said we were on the same page the whole time. No, they weren't on the same page the whole time. And that's where the confusion comes in. So that ball goes down the left field line. And where I'm sitting for that game, I'm in a perfect location to kind of watch that whole entire thing. I think this is a picture of us right here, but we were kind of on the first base side right there. So I can see that ball going into left, and PCA has to play like he described it right in front of him, but he also sees Riley Green. The ball gets to him before the warning track as Pete's rounding second. And so when Pete's coming into third, he kind of starts slowing it down, but then he picks up Quentin Berry. Quentin Berry's watching the outfield. He doesn't see PCA slowing down, and so he's waving him. And so then PCA speeds it up, but then Quentin sees where PCA is, and he puts the stop sign. That's where, PCA said, or counsel said PCA slipped. PCA has to put on the brakes and almost has to do a hop because he's going so fast. And then when he goes right back into third, it's an easy out. So, I mean, Quentin Berry, like I said, if he could do it again, I think what Craig said was accurate. You have to watch both the runner and the outfielder. Your eye has to be in two different directions at the same time, but you got to put yourself in position to do that. PCA, I think, would have been out at home easy had he sent the runner. And I think he put the stop sign up way too late, and that's what threw things off. So
you would have said out either. You would have said an out either way.
He would have been out easily been out. I mean, you never know.
Okay. Well, I'm saying I never got a second look at it. I got the one look at it when it happened, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't get a bunch of good reviews and good looks. I couldn't go back myself and see anything. So I'm just curious,
Yeah. If you go to, Crawly at Crawly's Cubs, I always have kind of the replays the next day on there from the big plays. And so you can go back and take a look, but yeah, it was definitely frustrating. And so the Cubs were able to get on the board in the sixth. Shaw leads the inning off with a double and was able to tie the game on Kyle Tucker's double to tie the game at 1. For me, Dustin, one thing I got to watch and had the perfect angle, like I was describing, wasn't just that play, but how good Skubal was at shutting down the Cubs running game. Okay. Mm-hmm. So obviously he's a lefty, so it's harder to run on lefties in general, but they were so confused. I was watching Shaw was there in the third inning when he got the first hit on a close bang play. Shaw had an infield single, couldn't time it, couldn't pick it up. He's stuck at first, right? In the fifth, that play we just talked about with PCA, he couldn't time Skubal. So instead of, usually when we see PCA and it's a close game, he's stealing second, right? He never stole second because he couldn't pick him up. He kept going off, coming back, couldn't read it. And then in the top of the eighth, that's when it really hurt him. Justin Turner lit off with a single. John Birdie comes into pinch run. You know what he's supposed to do, right? Yep. But he doesn't steal second. Then Shaw grounds out. He's safe, but Birdie's out at second. And Shaw decides to try to steal. He's thrown out. And so now you have 2 outs. Happ and Tucker hit back-to-back singles. Had Shaw not tried to steal or made it safely, that would have been a run. 2 on, 2 out. AJ Hinch turns over the ball to closer Will Vest for the 4-out save. Seiya hits one, and we're all up. The whole stadium has its breath held on this. It looks like it's going to go out. Kerry Carpenter reaches up and robs Seiya of a home run that would have given the Cubs the lead. Unfortunately, ends the inning. Bottom of the eighth, Jennison Cabrera gives up a solo home run to give Detroit a big insurance run. The Cubs hadn't run around the ninth, but Vest was able to close it down. Dustin, I was exhausted after that game.
Yeah, it was a good one. Listen, it lived up to the hype. I mean, the only thing that would have made it better, right, would have been the Cubs winning. But otherwise, as you mentioned, we got this thing going. That was a playoff style game. Cubs came up a little bit short, and maybe if it was at Wrigley and not there, maybe things would have been different. Maybe they would have been. Yeah.
You're talking about a couple inches from that ball going out over Carpenter's glove and Seiya hitting a 3-run home run there.
All right, so that was Friday night. That was game number 1. We move into game number 2, and my guy, Jameson Taillon, taking the ball.
Yes, sir. And that was a fun one. Cubs win it 6-1. After a frustrating loss the night before, Cubs came back and had a little mini home run derby, Dustin. The Tigers elected, they were trying to be sneaky here to go with an opener strategy. So rather than starting Keter Montero, which is how they had it originally, they started lefty Tyler Horton. They wanted to turn Ian Happ around, face Tucker, who's a lefty, then Suzuki Swanson, and then PCA lefty, and then go with Montero. Unfortunately for the Tigers, things don't go according to plan. He gets Happ and Tucker out, but Seiya Suzuki hits a solo home run to left to put the Cubs up 1-0. Top of the fifth, Nico Singles and Michael Busch hits a 2-run homer to left to add to the Cubs' lead. With that home run, Dustin, by Michael Busch, right now the Cubs have 5 players with 10 or more home runs. That's more than any team in baseball. The Mets, Dustin, have 4, and the Angels have 4. And when you think about it, like, you got Ian Happ, who's not really hit a lot of home runs so far this year. So when you have 5 players in your lineup to have 10 home runs or more at the 1/3 mark of the season, that's pretty darn good.
Pretty impressive. They can slug.
Yep. And so now you have in the seventh inning, PCA hits a solo home run, his 17th of the season to make it 4-1. Two batters later, Matty Shaw with his second of the season. And then in the top of the eighth, Seiya Suzuki hits the second home run of the game for him. And that gives the Cubs a 6-1 lead. Dustin, get this stat from our guy, Chris Compka. When I looked at this, I was like, wow. Okay. The Cubs 6-1 win over the Tigers yesterday was the first time a team had 0 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, but won by at least 5 runs. Last time it happened was when the Twins beat the Yankees 7-1 on June 26, 2016.
Yeah, so you almost have to think about that stat a little bit. I mean, once you think about it, it makes sense, but it's pretty wild.
But they had 6 runs and not one player in runner in scoring position, not one plate appearance. That is absolutely nuts. And so, for me, just looking at this right here, it's on the flip side. Jameson Taillon was dominant. He gave up a single in the first, a walk in the third that was immediately wiped out on a double play ball, and a single in the fourth. Bottom of the fourth, former Cub Zach McKinstry tripled and scored on a fielder's choice. Shaw tried to throw out McKinstry, but he threw it high and away so he wouldn't hit the runner. But Zach was able to get under the tag, and that made it a 3-1 game. After that, Jameson sat down the next 8 batters to end his day. Taillon pitched 7 innings, gave up 1 run on 3 hits, 1 walk. He struck out 5. For Jameson, that's his 5th quality start and the 4th time in a row he's pitched into the 7th inning.
That was a quality start.
7 innings against a really good team, and he only gave up 1 run. And so, yeah, JMO he's Mr. Dependent, Mr.
Consistency. Yeah. Consistency. No doubt about it. I've never heard, though, I'm sure you've gotten it too, maybe not, but like you should enjoy this more. You should be happier about the Cubs. I'm always worried. I'm always nervous. It's a long season. I want to enjoy it. But boy, Craig Counsell after this game, I've never heard somebody more seemingly upset or annoyed by the fact that his team won and they hit 5 home runs. All he did was hit 5 home runs. That's all he did. I just hit 5 home runs. That's baseball. I mean, I was like, what? Really? You're down on your offense right now? Maybe behind closed doors, but at least in front of everybody, act like, a 5 home run night's pretty damn good.
I think he always, he's not going to give you the highs. He's not going to give you the lows. Everything's always going to, listening to Craig is like listening to an accountant. It's not exactly the most exciting thing in the world. And he's going to, we hit 5 home runs. That's it. We could have done better, which they could have. But hey, you take the win.
All right, let's move to game number 3 as the Cubs were looking to win an 8th straight series. Cade Horton, Jack Flaherty.
Right. And so this was the rubber game between the Cubs and Tigers. And unfortunately, it was very similar to Friday night's loss. Detroit pitched well. They made some fantastic key defensive plays, got the big hit when they needed it, and the Cubs did not. And maybe that's what Craig's kind of talking about. Sometimes you need to get the key hits. It's not always going to be home runs.
Yeah, you can't live and die with the home run, right? It's like a college basketball team that lives and dies by the 3-pointer. Right. Same idea. You can't just hit home runs, right?
Right. Bottom of the first, Parker Meadows singles, Gleyber Torres walks. Cade Horton was able to get out the next 2 batter, but Spencer Torkelson, you said earlier, had a big weekend. He doubled to put the Tigers up 2-0. Cubs tried to answer in the 4th. Jack Flaherty walked the first 2 batters he faced, Ian Happ and Kyle Tucker. He strikes out Seiya for the first out, but PCA hits a single to right field. Ian Happ does wave home, and Kerry Carpenter throws a dart. Happ is called safe. The Cubs challenged the call, and it was close. I don't know what angles New York has, but it wasn't enough evidence to overturn it. Dustin, I didn't have a problem with the call to send him. It took a perfect throw by Kerry Carpenter. I don't have a problem with the call from MLB. Yes, you could argue he was safe, but again, what I think people forget is, do you have 100% definitive evidence to overturn the call on the field? I don't think there was. I think it was close. I think you could argue it either way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, that was a rough one.
Very close, but you made him throw the most perfect throw right there. And I think it was the right call, and I have no problem with Quentin Berry sending him on that one. Carson Kelly would walk, and then Michael Busch was robbed of extra base hits on a nice sleeping grab by Parker Meadows to end the threat. Controversy, Dustin, in the top of the 5th. Dansby Swanson doubles to lead off the inning. Nico Horner up to bat, and home plate umpire Derek Thomas. Nico was wrong. He actually had a pretty good game. Here's ump scorecards on this. He got the 96% of the calls right. He only missed 5 calls the entire game, and he was incredibly accurate. The thing he was, Dustin, was soft. And here's what I mean by soft.
I was going to say, I'm curious about this.
Yes,
you got the antenna up, Crawly.
Well, the call was wrong against Nico. It's if you take a look at the call, Nico was right. The call that he made was wrong. And so this is the play right here, Dustin. You got a guy on second, no outs, you're down 2-0. And so you could see ball 1 is clearly a ball, 2 is a foul ball, pitch number 3 is a ball. And then it's a knuckle curve. That's a strike right there. But the 5th pitch on 2-2 is a ball. It's not an egregious call, Dustin. It's right at the corner, slightly in and outside. Okay. And so he's rung up, and Nico is right. That wasn't the right call. What happens next and where things get thrown off is the ejection here. Here's what Nico said. And you want to talk about Craig Counsell actually showing some emotion. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's really that often you can verbatim say to the press afterwards, like, what got you thrown out? So I said, you're having a really bad day. Yeah, not a situation I want to get ejected in. Obviously, it's a close game, 2-0 at that point. Big moment in that game. I think partially why I got a reaction out of me. So, obviously don't want to miss the rest of that game, and had no intention of that. But unfortunately, that was the case.
The ejection of Nico was completely unwarranted, and there's nothing that was said that warrants an ejection. And you can't eject players and affect outcomes of games for no offense. Yeah, he didn't like what Nico said, but it's it just Nico's walking by. What he said is not, it's not ejectable, and you don't just eject players and change lineups and things like that.
All right, not happy about it. And so that's what Nico said. You're having a bad day. I literally heard the Marquee put out the actual audio. You could hear him say, usually when players say, I didn't say anything, da-da-da. You don't know that for sure. The audio said, Nico says, you're having a bad day.
Yeah. But I can understand why the ump didn't like that comment, but I disagree. Again, nobody came to see that umpire, right? You came to see Nico Horner. You came to see the Cubs lineup, and they took that away from you for no good reason.
Dustin, I have heard players say a lot worse and still not get ejected. You're having a bad day you're going to get players that get fired up and say things. And it wasn't like he was just being a jerk in the way he said it. He was frustrated. You let it go. You let it go. You don't act like that. You don't throw out the game. You don't throw out a player for something. You didn't even swear, Dustin. If you don't swear, you shouldn't be ejected from the game. Right. I mean, I totally listen. I'm not. Awful. I am on the Cubs side. I'm on Nico's side. I'm just saying I'm not necessarily like blown away that it happened. I am thrilled, though. I am thrilled. If you've been listening to this podcast over the years, I am thrilled that the skipper decided to go out and defend his player. That was good. I'm glad. I'm surprised you're not more surprised that you're gonna in a game of that magnitude. With everybody watching that whole weekend, that that's what would get you thrown out. I would have never imagined that happening.
I wouldn't have either. But I'm just saying, in the rule book, right? Unfortunately, in the rule book, it says you can't argue balls and strikes. That by definition, is the definition of arguing balls and strikes.
Well, he was just saying you're having a bad day. That's not arguing.
It's passive aggressive. It's passive aggressive. He's arguing. I'm just saying, again, I'm not taking the umpire's side by any stretch of the imagination, but if the guy was having a bad day and you just did that and pointed out the obvious, maybe he didn't appreciate that. Maybe Crawly, you would have been better off just having an outburst of foul language, towards a direction, right? And not do anything directed specifically at him. He took his power too far. Now he might get a wrist slap by Major League Baseball, but that doesn't do us as Cub fans any good.
No, and not only that, once Counsell's thrown out, I don't know if the momentum shifts or what, but then the Tigers have come right back and scored 2 more runs off Cade Horton on a Torres single, a Carpenter double, and a Riley single that made it a 4-0 game. Cade pitched 5 innings, gave up 4 runs on 7 hits, 2 walks, and had 6 strikeouts. Dustin, I know the score didn't look good, but I thought Cade pitched well. He pitched well.
He pitched well
against a very good team on the road in a playoff atmosphere.
Right. With a series on the line.
Right. It didn't look like it overwhelmed him. And the Cubs had one more chance to come back in the top of the 7th, 1 out. Bush and Swanson with back-to-back singles. But instead of Nico, Vidal Brujan is up because Nico got thrown out. And that's what
Nico's
Craig's
out.
talking
Right.
about.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Craig's talking about when he says you can't mess up with the lineup.
Yep.
The reason that Nico was batting where he was batting is to drive in runs, and now he can't because someone can't take a little tiny bit of criticism.
Right. Can't do it from the showers.
Nope. And so the Cubs would not have another base runner for the rest of the game. The offense was shut out by Jack Flaherty in the Tigers' pen. Cubs had only 4 hits, 2 off of Flaherty and 3 walks. Only 3 Cubs batters had hits. Dansby had 2 of them. Bush, PCA each had 1, and the Cubs were 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position and left 6 men on base. It was the 4th time, Dustin, they were shut out. But all in all, like I said, an enjoyable series, especially if you were a Tigers fan. But the Cubs and Tigers put on one hell of a show, especially after game 1. I said after game 1, Dustin, that if you took somebody who had never been to a baseball game before and Friday night was their first game, you would have had a fan for life. That's
very good point. Very good point.
Yeah. That's the type of game it was. Now, PCA did say something after the game that I kind of was, I was a little bit, I don't agree with PCA on. I wanted to play this.
Well, we play at Wrigley Field every day too, so electricity is something that we're very used to. But people are going to show up to go watch one of the better pitchers in baseball throw against one of the better teams in baseball, so it'll just make sense.
Now, he's just saying Wrigley's always electric, so we're not bothered by electric atmosphere. I'm going to kind of question that one just because, Dustin, I go to a lot of Cubs games at Wrigley Field, and it wasn't the same atmosphere that this was. It wasn't. And for guys like Nico, or not Nico, but PCA, for guys like Michael Bush, for guys like Cade Horton, for guys like Ben Brown, even though it didn't go the Cubs' favor, I think it was a great learning experience. And hopefully it will benefit them when they get into the dog days of summer and hopefully into October. And this is kind of something that if you take a look here that Detroit, their social media team ended up putting out when the series was over. 2 of MLB's best teams and fan bases came together this weekend, selling out Comerica for 3 straight days. It's the second highest attendance for a 3-game series in Detroit since 2015, topped only by last season's playoff clinching series versus the White Sox. So this was really an electric crowd, and I really enjoyed my time there, and it was a great series. And like I said, hopefully it benefits the Cubs later on in the future.
This is the Fly the W podcast. It is episode number 37 of season number 4. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. And don't forget to watch us, as you might be right now, on Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. All right, after losing the series, the first time in 7 series, how do things stand in the standings?
Well, luckily, the Cardinals lost yesterday as well as did the Brewers, but the Brewers are still on a tear. They've gained a gain recently against the Cubs. Cubs are 6-4 in their last 10, 40-25, followed by the Cardinals at 36-29, Brewers 35-31. The Reds are at an even 500, and Pittsburgh 26-40, but they have the same record as the Cubs in the last 10. They're on a little 3-game winning streak, so how about that?
Not bad, not bad, not bad.
And so we did get some information as far as an injury update. Shota Imanaga threw 37 pitches in a bullpen session on June 7th. He's slated for 2 innings at the rookie level Arizona Complex League game on June 9th, which is today. So we'll definitely have it for the next podcast, let you know how that went. Porter Hodge threw 30 pitches in a bullpen session on June 7th. They don't know what the next steps are, but eventually we don't know if Shota's going to do a minor league rehab start, but we do know that Porter Hodge will. And we talked about how the Cubs did release Julian Merriweather. He has now signed a contract, Dustin, with the New York Metropolitans.
Interesting. So, Crawly, anybody who listens to this knows that you were on a road trip with your pals from Club 400. We've had lots of fun events over the years on this podcast promoting stuff that you guys were doing together, and this was a fun one following you on social.
Yeah, wake up early, 8 in the morning. It's 5 o'clock somewhere is the way I always kind of put it. We made our first stop in Michigan at Bell's Brewery, which they have Oberon and Two Hearted Ale at Wrigley Field. But to have it fresh, ooh, that was some good stuff there.
Yeah, and
Dustin.
Oberon is a good one. Yeah, I like Oberon.
Yep. So we had a lot of fun there, and then we ended up kind of getting into Detroit. And I told you these were our seats. We had really nice seats right along, like I said, the first baseline. And then, Dustin, I always try to find some unique ballpark food. This was called the Detroit Patty Melt something. It was mozzarella sticks in between 2 fried pieces of sourdough bread with marinara sauce.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was pretty delicious. And again, the game was a lot of fun. We had a good time. We had 60 people on this trip, 45 on the bus.
Wow.
Afterwards on Fridays, they have a phenomenal firework, and you can see like the background there is very cool. I really enjoyed it. The next day we had our tailgate. First 9 in the morning till 12. We had a nice tailgate. Good amount of people just kind of hanging out, drinking beer, playing bags. So we had this whole parking lot to ourselves, and we did get to fly the W, of course. A lot of fun. Then what do you do after you fly the W but go to the casino to try your luck? We went to the Greektown, Detroit casino and hotel, so that was a lot of fun. Now, one thing that I love to do, Dustin, every time I go to a new ballpark, I love to go to ballpark tours. So regardless of how late I stayed up the night before, I ended up going to a ballpark tour in the morning, which was really, really cool. And Detroit's a really neat stadium. The last time I went, Dustin, was 2021, and everything was still very COVID-y, like zip ties on chairs. Things were locked down.
Yeah.
So I got there early with my friend Dave Arnold. We took a tour, and they got a lot of history. And outside, if you can see this picture here, they have these amazing sculptures of tigers with baseballs in their mouth.
Those are cool. Yeah. I got to go to the old Tiger Stadium in the final year. We sat in that overhang in right field. Those were our seats both days, a day game and a night game. Really cool in right field. We sat in the second row of that overhang, and it was really cool experience.
So right here is me flying the W in front of this giant tiger statue in front of the entrance of Comerica Park. I mean, it is just really phenomenal, the work that they did. Here's a picture of the Detroit skyline there. A giant Detroit Tigers catcher's helmet that I was in. 2 things that they put out that are really cool: the Statue of Liberty, and then right here is this Mickey Mouse. These were actually given to every team, and I don't know where the Cubs exist. The Cubs have a Mickey Mouse and a Statue of Liberty, but they did these for every All-Star game they do them.
Okay.
And so it was really cool to see that. This is Ernie Hallwell, and that was Len Casper's inspiration, those of you that know Len. But the cool thing about this is they also have a bunch of statues in center field, kind of left center, and all of these statues are done by our friend of the podcast, Lou Sella.
Ah, okay.
And so he did that, and he also did a Barry Sanders that's right outside of the stadium next to Ford Field. But they have these awesome statues of Hank Greenberg and Al Kaline and Ty Cobb and all of these great statues that are really kind of cool to see. They have a little amusement park there at Tiger Stadium where they have a merry-go-round and with the Tigers all hand-painted and a Ferris wheel with the baseballs right there. They got a couple World Series trophies that you get to see when you go on the tour. Dustin, you said you went to Old Tiger Stadium. Well, we did not go to the game on Sunday, but we did go to Old Tiger Stadium. It's still standing.
Wow. Okay. And this is a look at it, huh?
Yeah, this is right there. We were on the field. This was K-Line's corner where it used to be. You could see some condos right behind it.
I was to say those condos weren't there when I was there. That was the outfield. Yeah.
That was the outfield right there. And then we got to go. It was kind of cool. We got to go to right here on the field, but now it's being used by different like adult leagues and like other teams. But they had a lot of cool little things that you can kind of go around and see. And then we stopped at this place called Slow's Barbecue. If you are ever in Michigan, I've been to Texas, I've been to Tennessee, I've been to South Carolina, I've been to a lot of famous barbecue places. Slow's is definitely up there. I mean, it was, I had some pulled pork, brisket, mac and cheese, house lemonade, waffle fries. Oh my God. And then I passed out on the entire bus ride home, got home around 8 o'clock, and then slept pretty much till like noon today. So it was
nice.
It was a lot of fun, Dustin, but the people in Detroit, everybody was really cool. No fights, no dumbness. Everyone was really great. Everyone had a good time together. It was 2 great fan bases, like the Tigers said on their social media. And really wanted to thank everybody that came up and said hi and said nice things about the podcast. I had a lot of people telling you to say hi. But if you ever, we'll do it again next year. We'll go on another road trip. But it's fun to see these ballparks, Dustin. The character of the ballpark usually reflects the character of the city. And I thought that was the case here in Detroit. And then I'm going to continue. My goal is to see all 30. I think I'm at like 14, 15 right now. So I'm about halfway there. I'm hoping to get to Minnesota this season, but I love going to ballparks. I love doing the tours. And this was an absolute blast. And I want to thank Stuart McVicker and all the new friends and old friends that joined us on this Club 400 road trip. It truly was a blast.
This is the Fly the W podcast, episode 37 of season number 4. The Cubs lose the battle of heavyweights up in Motown. And of course, you can listen, you can download, you can subscribe, 5-star reviews. Those are welcome as well. You can email us, crawleysclubhouse@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch us as you may be right now by looking at Crawley's Clubhouse on YouTube TV. All right, so it's Cubs waking up in Philly last night. Now they've got a game coming up a little bit later from now. It's a 5:10 pregame on the score, a 5:40-ish first pitch. The Cubs and Phillies have played already this year. That one was here in town at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, if you remember that, it was the end of April and the weather was miserably cold with the wind howling in. The Phils took 2 of 3 from the Cubs. Colin Ray pitched a gem against Taijuan Walker. He pitched 5 shutout innings as the Cubs took the first game 4-1, but then the Phillies came back and pounded the Cubs 10-4. Jesus Luzardo mystified the Cubs, and Ben Brown looked good the first time through the order, but he gave up 6 runs and could not get out of the 4th inning. And the Phillies took the rubber game of the series, a pitcher's duel between Jameson Taillon and Aaron Nola. Both pitchers gave up 1 run through 7. This game went to extra where the Phillies scored 2 runs in the 10th off Julian Merriweather as the Phillies won the rubber game 3-1. But, Dustin, since the Cubs last played the Phillies had a dominant month of May until they played a doubleheader on May 29th. They won the first game, Dustin, but lost the second. But since winning that first game of the doubleheader, the Phillies have gone 1-9 and lost series to the Brewers, Blue Jays, and they were just swept in a 3-game series by, of all teams, the Pirates. So this is where they've been the last 10 games. They're 1-9. They're averaging 3 runs a game, which you might say, oh, that's pretty good. Not with this slugging team that they have. Their run differential is -30. They're hitting as a team .189. And one of their strengths, Dustin, is their starting pitching. Their ERA right now in the last 10 games, it's 5.94. So they are really struggling. Despite all that, they're still in second place in the NL East with a record of 37-28. And so they're 19-12 at home, but have a 14-17 record against teams with a winning record. Okay. So the Phillies will be without the services of Aaron Nola, who's been out with the right ankle sprain. And Dustin, the big news is on Saturday, the Phillies put Bryce Harper on the IL with the wrist issue. Dustin, Bryce Harper is one of the best players in the game. Even when he's not hitting, he finds ways to affect games, whether it's his defense, his base running. He takes walks. He gets on base. So the fact that the Cubs don't have to see Mr. Harper is a little bit of a blessing, I would say.
That's a blessing, Crawley. There's no doubt about that. That's a blessing. There it is.
Tail of the tape right now. The Cubs have a better batting average. They're second in baseball, while the Phillies are 8th with a 250. But we talked about how the Phillies are really struggling. So are the Cubs. Are not the second best in baseball this last week, but the Phillies are really much worse right now. The Cubs are 3rd in slugging at 443, while the Phillies are 396. And with runners in scoring position, the Cubs are 2nd in baseball at 295, while the Phillies are 12th at 256. Starting pitching, the edge goes to the Phillies, who are 12th in baseball with an starter's ERA of 370, while the Cubs are 18th with a starting ERA of 390. But the Cubs have a much better bullpen. Their reliever whip is 13th at baseball, 1.25, while the Phillies are 23rd at 1.40. The big difference, Dustin, defense. The Cubs are the 3rd best defensive team in baseball with 35 defensive run saves.
Wow.
The Phillies are 29th in baseball.
Jesus, look at that.
To worst.
It's like opposite. Yeah.
Negative 35 defensive runs.
Crazy. It's crazy.
When you think about it, Dustin, I mean, when you think about Nick Castellanos, it's like they got a bunch of guys that would be good at a 16-inch beer league, softball game in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They're not exactly the most athletic defensively.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But
we will see what happens. This we'll see. All right, tonight, Matthew Boyd, Zach Wheeler, 5:45 first pitch, 5:10 pregame with Zach Saban over on the Score.
Yes, Dustin, we do have the lineup for the Cubs, and it looks like this. We talked about it before the game. Ian Happ leading off, Tucker batting second and playing right field, Suzuki DHing, Crow Armstrong center fielder, Swanson shortstop, Bush is at first base, Kelly catching, Horner second base, Shaw at third base. You were happy, as was I, to see Kelly being moved down in the lineup.
Well, it only makes sense, right? I'm not trying to be a bad guy. I wish he was doing better so he could be batting, higher in the order. But the way he's been batting, it's about damn time that Craig moved him down.
Now, the only thing I would switch, Dustin, I would flip Kelly and Horner so that Horner would be in front of Kelly to be able to have Bush and Swanson and guys on base in front of him. And then that to me would work a little bit better. And then you have Shaw batting ninth. So he's kind of like that second leadoff spot in case it rolls over. That's
right.
The only difference for me. But again, I would move Kelly down to 8. But other than that, I can't complain. Matt Boyd is 5-3 with a 3.01 ERA in 12 games started with 70 strikeouts and 68 and 2/3 innings. He's 0-3 though on the road, Dustin, with a 3.49 ERA, which isn't bad, but he's better at home. He's been one of the Cubs' most dependable starters. He struggled on May 23rd against the Reds. He gave up 4 runs on 8 hits in 4 innings, but he bounced back for a win against the Rockies on May 28th, giving up 1 unearned run in 6 innings of work. In his last start against the Nationals on June 4th, he was the tough luck loser. He gave up 2 runs in 7 1/3 innings. He lost against Mackenzie Gore and the Nationals on that. Boyd has only made 1 start in his career against the Phillies. And he didn't see him last time they were in town. And the only time he faced him was in 2019. So only 3 Phillies has seen Boyd, and only one of them has more than 5 at-bats against him, Max Kepler, who's 2 for 20.
And the other way around?
Zach Wheeler, 6-2 with a 2.96 ERA in 12 games started with 94 strikeouts and 76 innings of work. He's 3-1 when pitching at home with a 3.09 ERA. He missed his last start. He was on paternity leave as he and his wife welcomed their 4th child, baby girl. Congratulations to the Wheeler family. Wheeler had an excellent month of May. He went 4-1. He gave up 2 runs in 7 innings against the Rays on May 6th, then pitched 3 straight shutouts against the Guardians, the Pirates, and Athletics. But Dustin, in his last start against the Braves on May 29th, he gave up 6 runs in 5 1/3 innings on 4 hits and 4 walks. Wheeler is 2-2 lifetime against the Cubs with a record of 2-2 in 9 games started with a 3.59 ERA. Happ is 4 for 9 against Wheeler. Nico 3 for 11, but Dansby's only 6 for 42, and Kyle Tucker's 0 for 6. Wheeler has an arsenal of pitches that he uses. A fastball averages 96, a sinker, a sweeper, splitter, cutter, and curve. He's a strikeout pitcher that doesn't give up a lot of ground balls or many hard hit balls.
All right, game number 2, and this one I'm very interested. Colin Ray, I'm interested in all the games, but Colin Ray's going. I'm interested. Is Colin Ray starting, or are they doing an opener?
Question we had about Ben Brown, right?
Right, but the last time around, Colin Ray had an opener, worked out pretty good for him, right?
Right.
It worked out pretty good. So they didn't do it for Brown, so might Drew Pomerantz be starting on Tuesday? We don't know, but right now it says Colin Ray.
Yep. He's 4-2 with a 3.59 ERA in 13 games. 9 of those starts with 43 strikeouts and 57 and 2/3 innings pitched. On the road, he's 2-1 with a 3.47 ERA. He's had his struggles against the Cincinnati Reds, giving up 6 runs on May 24th and again 6 runs on May 30th. So in his last start, like you mentioned, Counsell used the opener, and that seemed to work. He came in the second inning. He pitched 5 1/3 scoreless innings and picked up the win. He's 1-2 lifetime against the Phillies in 7 games. 5 of those starts with a 2.45 ERA. Ray has to be careful against JT Realmuto, who's 4 for 10 against him. Schwarber's 3 for 8, but Alex Boehm is 0 for 9. Nick Castellanos 2 for 11, and Bryson Stott is 1 for 9 against Colin.
All right, and the Phillies, this guy, Mick Abel.
Yeah, he's a 23-year-old righty. This is his first season in the big leagues. He was drafted 15th overall by the Phillies in 2020. He made his major league debut on May 18th versus the Pirates. He pitched well, pitched 6 shutout innings, gave up only 5 hits, struck out 9, and didn't walk a batter. And then he was sent right back down to AAA. He makes his second start on June 4th versus the Blue Jays, and again pitched well, gave up 1 run on 3 hits in 5 1/3 innings with 2 strikeouts and no walks. And so nobody on the Cubs has seen him pitch at the major league level. He's a strikeout pitcher whose 4-seamer averages 96, throws a curve, a sinker, and a slider.
And how do Cubs probably have no recollection of him, right?
No at-bats against him in the major league.
So sometimes that can be good, but sometimes, unfortunately, that can be bad. All right, Ben Brown, somebody we were really impressed with Friday night versus Jesus Luzardo. This is a day game. This is an 11:30 pregame, 12:05. It's a little afternoon affair in Philly.
Yeah, remember here, this is going to be the rematch from the middle game of the series at Wrigley on April 26th.
Okay.
So Ben Brown's 3-4 with a 5.37 ERA and 13 starts, 11 those starts with 78 strikeouts and 63 2/3 innings. After a disastrous start on 5.25 against the Reds when he gave up 8 runs in 4 1/3 innings, we talked about Brown using the opener on 5.31 against the Reds, and he pitched phenomenal. Came into the game in the second inning, pitched 6 shutout innings, gave up 1 hit and 1 walk, and struck out 9. In his last start on Friday night, Ben, we talked about that earlier, pitched 7 innings against the Tigers, gave up 2 runs on 7 hits, 1 walk, and 7 Ks. So Ben's only faced the Phillies once in his career, that time in April when he gave up 6 runs in the 4th inning. None of the Phillies hitters have seen Ben more than one time, but most of them have at least 1 hit from that 4th inning. So I think about that series where he pitched twice in a week against the Reds, and one he gave up 8 runs, and then the next he didn't give up any. So I'm hoping it's the same thing here. I hope even though he had that bad start against the Phillies last time, this time is going to be a little bit different. So we'll see.
We will see, Crawly. That's why they like to say, that's why they play the games. All right. How about the Cubs when they're facing Luzardo?
So if you guys remember, Jesus Luzardo is a guy that in April, report comes out that the Cubs had a trade in place to acquire him, but they backed out after looking at the medicals. Okay. Now Luzardo was great in the month of April, going 2-0 with a 1.44 ERA and 5 starts. May also look great for Luzardo. He gave up 2 runs or less in 4 starts. Then they gave up 3 runs to the Athletics on May 25th. But on May 31st versus the Brewers, Luzardo got hit like a piñata, giving up 12 runs, Dustin, in 3 1/3 innings. Can you think about that?
No.
I mean, 12 runs in 3 1/3 innings. He gave up more runs in that one start than he did in his previous 10 starts. Okay. And so here's the thing. The Brewers, Dustin, as we all know, are notorious for finding out about pitches that are tipped, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Luzardo's cruising this season, and then he gets destroyed by the Brewers. His last start on June 5th wasn't much better. All right. He gave up 8 runs on 9 hits in only 2 1/3 innings. So, and so that was versus the Blue Jays. So people are wondering, is he tipping? Is there something out on him? Why were those 2 starts? They weren't just not good. They were awful. Like everybody knew what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that continues. It'll be interesting to see what he does against the Cubs, because Luzardo's 3-0 lifetime against the Cubs in 6 games started with a 2.43 ERA. The Cubs slash a meager 155, 260, 154 against Luzardo. Dansby's the best at 3 for 13. Nico 2 for 10. Seiya's 1 for 19. How about Kyle Tucker 1 for 16 against Luzardo?
Oof.
No one hits him well. He has a fastball that averages 96 miles per hour, a sweeper, changeup, and sinker. Another power pitcher, but like I said, we don't have any idea what's going on with Luzardo. Again, the Cubs didn't like his medicals. Is there something injury-wise going on? Is there something, like I said, is he tipping? We don't know.
All right. Who's hot? Who's not?
Michael Busch for the Cubs is hot. 7 for his last 19. 2 home runs, 5 RBI, slashing 368, 455, 789. Matty Shaw back up there. 7 for his last 22 with a home run, slashing 318, 545. PCA, you'll see a little bit of a drop right here for the Cubs offense, which has kind of been sputtering a little bit. 6 for his last 24 with 2 home runs, 3 RBIs. He's slashing 350, 308, 542. So he does have some slug going, but big drop off between what Michael Busch is doing and Matt Shaw versus PCA.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, Kyle Tucker's on this list. Nico Horner's on this list. We've talked about Carson Kelly a couple times in the podcast. He is on this list and finally has moved down to 7th in the batting order.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker, 3 for his last 16. He's slashing 188, 316, 313 in the last week. Nico Horner, 3 for his last 22, so maybe that's why he's batting 8th. but it's not like Carson Kelly's batting any better. He's 2 for his last 16, slashing 125, 176, 125. The trouble is we have a lot of guys that are kind of struggling like in the middle area, like PCA's middle, not that great, 250. Ian Happ, 250. Seiya Suzuki, 217. Dansby, 217. Tucker, 188. Nico, 136. So the Cubs are finding a way to win games, even though the offense is kind of sputtering lately.
Yeah, very, very good. All right. So how about for the Phillies? Who do the Cub fans and the Cub pitchers need to be aware of and worried about?
They got 3 guys that are hot right now. Alex Bohm, their third baseman, 7 for his last 22, slashing 318, 375, 364. Trey Turner, 8 for his last 26 with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs. He's really been a power threat for them lately, slashing 308, 308, 654. And Nick Castellanos, 6 for his last 21 with 1 home run and 2 RBI, slashing 286, 318, 524. But like the Cubs, they have a lot of guys that are kind of either middle or struggling. JT Real Muto hitting 231 the last week. Brandon Marsh, 182. Kyle Schwarber, 125. He does have a home run and 2 RBIs. Bryson Stott, .095. Bryce Harper, we said we're not going to face, but he was batting .091. He's had that wrist issue. And then Max Kepler, their left fielder, is 1 for his last 16, batting .063. So there is literally just almost more than half their lineup is batting less than 200.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? I mean, they are ice cold at the plate. Ice cold.
The one
this
thing
is
a
good time. It's a good time. It's a good time to face them, though, right? Good time to face them. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. This is a good time to face this team. They are what? A 7-game losing streak, and they're 1-9 in the last 10.
Yes. And so what you have to take a look at is that the thing about them is they're really streaky. So I remember that they were on a losing streak the last time they came to play the Cubs, and they turned it around. So I'm hoping that they continue to stay ice cold at the very minimum for this 3-game series so that the Cubs can come out on top.
All right, prediction time. I will go first this time. I think I got it right last time. I said the Cubs would not be swept. You maybe said 2 of 3 if you remember correctly. Anyway,
we both had the Tigers taken 2 of 3.
Okay, both had that. All right, so no, I definitely did not have the Cubs taken 2 of 3.
I said I'm Tigers 2 of 3, not Cubs.
Okay,
Tigers.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say the Cubs take 2 of 3. They're going to win this series, and the key is going to be tonight. Crawly, they are like 19-6 off a loss.
And on openers, they're phenomenal in the opening game of the series.
And I just like the fact that the Phillies, aren't going to have Harper the whole time, and that they're ice cold at the plate. Schwarber's also not been great. I always worry about him. So I'm going to say the Cubs take 2 or 3 and they get themselves right during this little stretch. I'm a little worried about that middle game. Is Colin Ray starting? Are they doing an opener? Blah, 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 blah. But I think they can win 1 and 3.
This is a tough one. I think we're both in agreement. Game 3, Ben Brown versus Lusardo has been struggling. This is one of those games that I think is going to go either really, really good or really, really bad. I don't think it's going to be a 2-1 series. I think someone's going to sweep, and I don't know who. I'm going to just play it safe, though, and say the Cubs are going to take 2 out of 3, but I got a feeling they're going to take game 2 and game 3. That's what I'm going to go with.
All right, that's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to this Fly the W podcast. Got any questions? We got answers. Email us, Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com, and you can watch us by subscribing to Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube channel. Crawly, lots of games in a row here for the Cubs. No days off until, a week from today? So we're going to be busy over the next week.
Absolutely, and thanks for everyone for listening, for watching. Cubs are in the city of brotherly love, so hopefully they can give it to those fighting Phils. Go Cubs!
It's all over.